Hey everyone, it's Joelle. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little controversial. Your girl has been getting canceled over on Instagram for a video that she posted. The video was about trans women in sports. I ended up having to remove the video because the hate just got so bad. I didn't really have the chance or opportunity to fully articulate my views and opinions on the subject, so I wanted to put that into a YouTube video for you all. We are going to go over a few of the comments that I got and just go over the good and the bad and the ugly. And at the end of the video, we'll then go over what my thoughts are on the subject. Before we get started, make sure to follow me on my other social medias. I'll make sure to put them down here for ya. I'm just getting back into YouTube and I do plan to make videos every single week. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell to get notified every time I make a new video. All right, without a further ado, let's get into it. All right, here is the video that I posted.
Are you stupid?
The video says, just a trans woman about to go and dominate women's figure skating. And then I follow that up by saying, LOL, just kidding. I don't think any women are worried about that because from the video, you can see that I am not a crazy competitive figure skater. In order to be a competitive figure skater, it takes so much practice and dedication. It is not something that I can just pick up and do and dominate simply because I was born male. Now, that being said, I personally have never competitively skated against women. I have competitively skated against men. I actually did skate for my college at the University of California, San Diego. I was on the intercollegiate figure skating team, and my team actually did make it to intercollegiate nationals 2 years in a row, one of which I did end up placing and getting a gold medal in. I actually was able to win against men at my level. It's so important to distinguish that. I was not skating at senior championships. I was skating at preliminary, so that is like the entrance level of figure skating. Within figure skating, there are different levels that you can compete in, and then of course there's men's free skate and then women's free skate, and then there's also dance competitions, which do actually tend to be co-ed. I actually did skate against women at intercollegiate nationals, and I was obliterated. I got last place. I did not win by any means. The girls were so good, their edges were so clean, and there was just no way that I could compete against them. And that is before I even started my transition. I'm gonna go ahead and read the caption because I do feel like most people didn't actually take that time to read what it said. Just a reminder, trans women do not have an inherent advantage over anyone. And that's honestly so offensive to cis women. It takes so many years of practice, dedication to be a professional athlete. A trans woman simply cannot decide to compete and miraculously dominate. That is not how it works. Furthermore, most trans people that we are considering in these scenarios are literal minors, half of which are trans female to male, right? So not even trans women, but trans men who literally just want to be part of a team, doing things that kids should be doing with their friends at that age. And remember that trans people only make up about 1% of the population to begin with. Why deprive them of this experience? In addition, the few studies that have been done on trans women show that trans women do not have an inherent advantage in comparison to cis women. And even then, as I'm sure all athletes have experienced at one point, no matter what sport you play, there is always someone taller or who started younger or who has a better support system. But we don't bar those players from participating. If you really want to help women's sports, we should be focusing on the lack of funding, equipment, mentors, access to quality resources, and racial injustices, not trans people. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at some of these negative comments that I was getting. Because girl, they were intense. Before we get into the hate though, let me start off with at least one good comment. This one is from Rachel F787 on Instagram. And she said, it takes years of dedication and training for an athlete to reach the higher echelons in their field. Trans people have no inherent advantage and should be allowed to play with their friends and part of the team. Rachel, thank you for being an ally. All right, let's go ahead and look at one of the not so nice comments. So this one is by Corey0520. LMAO, you spelled you wrong, Corey. You seriously believe that? Why are records being absolutely demolished then? Unfortunately, this was a comment that I was getting a lot, and it is absolutely not true. I did my best, okay? I literally did my best to try to find any trans women who were dominating, who were breaking records in women's sports, and it simply was not happening. Trans women have been allowed to compete competitively for over a decade at this point, and the only person that I could find that was setting records, not breaking records, was Lia Thomas. And this is a very popular name that was getting thrown around. I even have a comment that was in regards to that. Let's go ahead and read it. So this comment was by gracious_41, who said, yeah, there needs to be guidelines on how far someone has transitioned. Like, obviously, no one built like Lia Thomas should be in a women's pro sports league. Firstly, let's talk about Lia Thomas's appearance, because everyone loves to pick it apart because she is someone who appears to be hyper masculine. But this is also a common aesthetic for a lot of professional women swimmers, like Haley Anderson, who is a cis woman, who is also very built and has broad shoulders. Swimming in itself is a sport that fosters that type of build. I feel like anybody who attacks Lia Thomas's appearance in that way has clearly never seen professional women swimmers. They tend to appear stronger and have a bigger build, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Cis women do not all look the same. They are not all super small and dainty and delicate. Women can be strong and powerful too, and that includes cis women, not just trans women. Literally anything that you use like this where you're attacking a trans woman's appearance only ends up hurting cis women. So it is so important that we don't do that. In fact, because of the outrage surrounding Lia Thomas, unfortunately, many professional women swimmers were being accused of being transgender simply for looking the way that they do. Let's go ahead and dive in a little bit into Lia Thomas's history and see why everyone is talking about her. Lia Thomas won the women's 500-yard freestyle race in 4 minutes, 33.24 seconds. She came 5th in the 500-yard race with 1 minute, 43.40 seconds, and 8th in the 100-yard race with 48.40 seconds. These were impressive results, but they were by no means record-breaking. She did set records specifically for Penn University for the season, but she did not break any record. Now, there was an infamous letter that was sent to the NCAA by a group of concerned parents. They claimed that she would go on to take down Katie Ledecky's record and that she was going to take Missy Franklin's record as well. Lia Thomas's top time in the 500-yard freestyle is a full 10 seconds slower than Ledecky's, and Franklin's record is also well ahead of Thomas's best. So even with Lia Thomas, with trans women competing in women's sports competitively for over a decade, we still have yet to have a trans woman break records of cis women. There are definitely trans women that are making a name for themselves, as well as trans men who are making a name for themselves, which people never bring up or talk about because of misogyny. And yet we're hyper fixated on this one trans person. And even then, at this one competition, she did not place first overall. She got first place in the 500-yard freestyle race, but then she came in 5th place in the 200-yard race, and then she came in 8th place in the 100-yard race. So she was definitely a competitor, but she was by no means dominating the competition. Honestly, this whole situation really just illuminates how rampant and toxic transphobia is in our society today. It really feels like society only wants us to exist if we don't. I want to circle back to the beginning of that comment as well, where Gracious said, yeah, there needs to be guidelines on how far someone has transitioned in order for them to compete. There actually are guidelines for trans women in regards to how far they've transitioned in order for them to compete. The International Olympic Committee began allowing trans athletes to compete in 2004. At first, the International Olympic Committee required athletes to legally change their gender and undergo gender reassignment surgery in order for them to be able to compete. 6 years later, the NCAA announced that they would allow trans women to be able to compete on collegiate women's teams after 1 year of testosterone suppression, and other governing bodies, including the International Olympic Committee, went on to adopt similar rules thereafter. So circling back to Lia Thomas's situation, she didn't just wait 1 year. She actually waited over 2 years, close to 3 years of testosterone suppression before competing competitively against cis women. Okay, let's go ahead and take a little breather from all the toxic and negative comments by reading another nice comment. This comment was by Aiden. Aiden said, hi, OMG, not me thinking I'll be the best at figure skating and dominate cis men, because I had no motivation to continue lately. Aiden is a trans female to male, so a trans man who competes competitively against cis men in figure skating. And in their eyes, they saw it as an advantage for them to compete against cis men. Aiden, thank you so much for your comment. And unfortunately, I do feel like not enough people think about trans female to male. Trans men exist and they are valid and they compete in sports as well. And we tend to neglect and ignore them so much. And that actually brings me to my next comment. This one is by KissTheClowns_2.0, who said, you'll notice that no trans men try to compete in men's sports. Wonder why? This is simply not true. There are plenty of trans men athletes out there. People simply just don't care. And this all really circles back to misogyny, because people view trans men as women and people don't see women as a threat. People don't see as women as being capable or being strong. Trans men are men and they are definitely capable of holding their own in men's sports, such as Chris Moiser, a transgender man who competed on Team USA as a triathlete. And he was and is still considered a huge trailblazer for trans people. There's also Schuyler Bailar, who was the first D1 trans men's athlete for the NCAA. And when he was competing for Harvard, Harvard actually won the Ivy League title in each of his final 3 seasons on the team. And Schuyler actually finished 8th at the 2019 NCAA Division Men's Swimming and Diving Championships, which is also the best season that they've had in over 50 years. There's also Bobby Hirsch, who is a fencing champion, and honestly, the list goes on and on. I feel like even if I named thousands of trans men who are making a name for themselves, I feel like people would still not care and continue to attack trans women in sports. And finally, the last hate comment that I will be going over today is from Deuce_Mortem130, who said, the testosterone in your body and the benefits say otherwise. I actually responded to this over on Instagram, and it is simply not true. When trans women start HRT, they typically try to get their testosterone level as low as possible to be able to decrease their muscle mass and have a more feminine appearance. The normal level of testosterone in men is typically between 300 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, while the average for women is between 9 and 55 nanograms per deciliter. And if you've never heard of that before, surprise, cis women also have testosterone in their bodies. The biggest defining factor is simply the amount of our testosterone and estrogen in comparison to one another. Now, I, as a trans woman, the last time that my HRT levels were tested, my testosterone level was actually at 8 nanograms per deciliter. So my testosterone level is actually lower than the average for cis women. And what this really does is it really illuminates the fact that we can no longer utilize studies that we have for cis men for trans women. Trans women are so different from our cis men counterparts. We are not the same. Our bodies are not the same. We do not test the same or have the same level of endurance or muscle as them. And it is so important that when we're talking about these things, we really need to have more studies that are specifically done on trans women. Literally just this year, the International Olympic Committee did do a study on, I believe, over 30 trans women where they found that there was no inherent advantage. In fact, they found several areas that show that trans women may actually have a disadvantage in comparison to cis women. The study found that trans women performed worse than cisgender women in tests measuring lower body strength. The study found that transgender women performed worse than cisgender women in tests measuring lung function. Transgender women had a higher percentage of fat mass, lower fat-free mass, and weaker hand grip strength compared to cisgender men. Transgender women's bone density was found to be equivalent to that of cisgender women, which is linked to muscle strength. And those were only a few of the findings of the study. So with all of that being said, I feel that trans women should be allowed to compete in sport. And that will always be my opinion until we find out otherwise. I myself am always open to learning and discovering more about this issue, but the fact remains that there are simply not enough studies on trans women to prove that trans women have an inherent advantage over cis women when it comes to competing in sports. And I feel that until we can prove otherwise, trying to bar trans women from sports is blatant transphobia. The studies that have currently been done on trans women prove that there is no inherent advantage. They show that trans women may even be at a disadvantage. And if you still want to bar trans women from that, that's literal transphobia. That's exactly what transphobia is. It is getting way too hot in this corner, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and make sure to hit that subscribe button to see more of my content. And to all of my trans siblings out there, remember that you are valid, you are beautiful, and you are deserving of love and respect. So please, please, please don't take any crap from anyone. I love you. Bye.